Hi, I'm your host Gemma and welcome to another exciting episode from Marvelous Videos, where today I'll be taking you through Mr. Chuckle Teeth Origins from X-Files Explored. The 8th episode of the 11th season of X-Files seemed to deliver all the horrors it had in store. The episode was titled Familiar. It was more of a blast from the past, as the X-Files Season 2 had another similar episode called Hard Die Verletzt. I call the two similar because the two storylines had similar premises. Both were based on witchcraft. Familiar, however, was more like a crossover between it and Goosebumps. The story takes place in a small town where one of the characters is quite obviously based on Georgie, with freakishly good spooky sequences that really fill you with horror. From the first moment itself, this episode of the X-Files really delivers on all aspects. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Right now, I'm at the park with Andrew.
Mommy! Mr. Chuckle Teeth!
Mr. Chuckle Teeth, a malevolent, satanic demon. The show starts off with a small boy called Andrew singing a theme song of a cartoon, which I'm assuming is called Mr. Chuckle Teeth. He's shown playing with a Mr. Chuckle Teeth toy in a park in the small town of Eastwood, Connecticut. So, clearly he really likes the show. Another young girl, Emily, also playing in the park, witnesses a giant Mr. Chuckle Teeth walking through the forest area. At the same time, Diane, Andrew's mother, is busy on a phone call. When she turns around, she finds Andrew gone. Andrew has gone into the jungle to look for Mr. Chuckle Teeth, while Diane scrambles to find him. There is obviously huge disarray in the community, and a search party goes out looking for him with a team of police detectives, including Rick, Andrew's father. They find Andrew's dismembered body in the forest. Rick is obviously inconsolable. After they find the body, our favourite FBI detectives, Dana Scully and Fox Mulder, show up to look into the matter, since the killing of a law enforcement officer's family member comes under the FBI jurisdiction. In this case, it implies that Andrew has been murdered. Scully notes during the examination of the kid's body that he has neck injuries that probably killed him. The injuries also look consistent with being shaken to death. She believes this could be the work of what she calls a serial offender who probably has gotten off so far, escaping arrest. While Mulder, on the other hand, speculates that the culprit is either a coy wolf or, more exotically, a hellhound, except he is less of, oh, a man murdered the little boy, and more of, somebody opened the gates of hell, which is why this boy is dead. The reason behind this, during the autopsy, Mulder also discovers a material that resembles sand or salt near Andrew's ankle, which is not shown to the FBI agents or even talked about. It's clearly a big deal because Mulder immediately visits Chief Strong, the police chief of the town, at his home. At the same time, the community comes together at the church to grieve the boy's passing. Mulder observes that the family has many publications on the history of this town, including information on witchcraft and witchcraft trials. He asks to speak with Emily, who was in the park with Andrew when he went missing, making her a major witness. At first, she doesn't tell them anything. She claims to not have seen him go away. However, later, Emily reveals to Mulder and Anna, her mother, while watching television, that she previously saw Mr. Chuckle Teeth in the jungle before Andrew died. Meanwhile, Rick looks through the existing criminal database at the station to find registered sex offenders, since Scully had recommended that the profile of the murderer matches that of a sex offender. This leads him to discover a man by the name of Melvin Peter. Scully wants to know whether Rick is the one who murdered Andrew, but by the time she can have the interrogation with him, Rick has already left the station premises in search of Peters. They see him speeding off in a cop car, so Scully, Mulder, and Chief Strong pursue him. As he approaches Peter's home, Rick enters armed with a revolver. Although Peter is not at home, Scully, Mulder, and Chief Strong locate many images of him appearing in clown costume at kids' parties. They find a caged monkey, a Mr. Chuckleteeth mask and shoes and clown outfits in Peter's closets. So yeah, from the looks of it, it is a little difficult to rule out the possibility of it being his work. Meanwhile, back at the Strong residence, Emily is watching TV again. This time, it is her favourite show, which is quite obviously a rip-off of Teletubbies. Suddenly, one of the characters from her show is standing on her lawn, luring Emily outside. Later, she is discovered dead, having been killed in a similar way as Andrew. This time, Mulder spots a circle of salt surrounding the body, which may be enough evidence to not rule out witchcraft. When the sex offender, Peters, enters town again, he sees a giant crowd around his house. When Rick spots him, he assaults the suspect. Back in the forest, Chief Strong is forced to confess the truth about witchcraft to Mulder, which he had been hiding so far. According to Strong, the reason for all this happening is his sins. He has been a lustful man and has committed adulteries, which he thinks are leading to all of this. The fellow officers are quite obviously concerned and worried once they find out the truth. Meanwhile, a large audience gathers in the park to witness Rick beating Peter severely while he keeps denying killing Andrew. When the cops reach, they can't get the crowd to disperse, so Mulder uses his gun to fire in the air. Scully calls the entire thing under FBI jurisdiction and states that anybody seen causing more harm would be booked for attempt to murder. Rick is then removed from Peter, but it obviously doesn't stop there. He unexpectedly grabs his service gun and shoots Peter once straight in the head, effectively killing him. The thing is, Rick doesn't know about Emily's death at this point, and he is in a state of rage due to the death of his son, so he cannot see that Peters was actually not in town when the murders happened. One of the police officers later reveals that Peters was actually at a birthday party miles away from town, so he couldn't have been the one who did it. The next night, Rick returns home after being released on bail for murder. He then comes home to confront his wife about her relationship with Strong. It's clearly not a good idea because they have a fight, and she says that she is leaving him. Most of it happens after he tries to hit her. She is shown driving down a dark road right next to the forest. There, she swerves the car to dodge what one can only think of as Andrew's spirit. Her car flips in the process and she dies. A heartbroken Rick decides to enter Chief Strong's house after all this. The reason he is there is to probably kill him, but then he runs across Mr. Chuckleteeth there. He follows the cartoon character while Chief Strong returns home. There is a standoff at this point, and both of them point guns at each other. The scene changes, and we see Scully and Mulder arrive. When they reach, they find that Rick has been fatally shot by Chief Strong. It only keeps getting interesting. Chief Strong, after murdering Rick, goes to find Diane and discovers her battered car on the highway near the forest. We now have Diane's spirit in the woods, which Strong follows without even noticing her mutilated body lying on the forest floor. After visiting the park where Andrew vanished, Mulder and Scully enter the woods that same night. Seriously, Mulder has such good instincts. Scully should really trust him more, especially when he says bizarre things. Anyways, instead of Diane, Chief Strong discovers Anna, his wife, carrying a grimoire, which is basically a spell book for witches, from the looks of it, while standing in a circle made of salt in the middle of the woods. So yeah, mystery solved. It was the adulterer's wife, right? No, it gets better. It was the adulterer's wife, but she was using spirits that she had no control over to do her little work. The Hellhound kills Strong when he realizes his wife used witchcraft just to get revenge on Diane for their little affair. Mulder and Scully run over to stop Anna when they see her standing near Strong's body and crying. They try to get her out of the circle, and she performs another spell in order to break the ongoing one. But this time, it backfires because it causes her to instantly catch fire and, well, crash and burn like her plan. Turns out Scully was wrong, and Mulder was right. And people do combust spontaneously after all. After that, Scully gives the grimoire to the authorities, which strangely enough, they didn't burn. Like, hello, horror basics. As they leave, the merry-go-round that Andrew had been playing on starts to spin ominously. More info about the demon. The main adversary of this episode is Mr. Chuckle. As a result of this episode's importance in returning the show back to its horror origins, Mr. Chuckleteeth has now emerged as one of the more recognisable villains of this time period. This revival has made him even more recognisable by his peculiar look and mannerisms. Mr. Chuckleteeth is a terrifying character despite being a children's mascot. He wears a tuxedo and has a huge head like a dummy, odd eyes, and a big toothy grin. He is a silent, black and white character with the exception of a big red bow tie and harkens back to the early days of animation. He moves in a comical style that, although seeming adored by his young audience, is actually ominous and unnerving. When talking about the inspiration for this episode, Benjamin Van Allen, the writer, said, "I've always been creeped out by children's television show characters like Teletubbies. There is another show I saw that kind of inspired the Bible Tiggles, as we call them in the show, called Boo Bars. A lot of kids shows like that, when you watch them, you're like, holy shit, how am I letting my kid watch this? It's so weird. Kids' TV shows have always really creeped me out. I really just want to make a classic X-Files episode. It's a Monster of the Week episode, but not all Monster of the Week episodes actually have a monster. I really wanted to have some recognisable monster for the episode. That's where the Mr. Chuckleteeth guy came in. Like the classic X-Files feel, I definitely wanted to set it in a small town. I wanted to start the episode in the town with Mulder and Scully and end the episode in the town with Mulder and Scully. As much as I love all the X-Files lore, I didn't want to see the X-Files office. I didn't want to put Skinner in this episode. I just wanted it to be a very classic, standalone Monster of the Week episode. Mr. Chuckleteeth was once just a cute little doll that was deeply loved by a little kid named Andrew. The doll was based on a famous children's program, which was a wholly made-up thing, specifically for the show. Mr. Chuckleteeth would eventually come to life as a terrifying life-size version of the toy that materialised in the shade of the woods and enticed an inquisitive Andrew into the forest. Turns out, it was all owing to evil powers at work that no one could fathom. Unaware that Mr. Chuckleteeth was enticing him to a sudden and gruesome death, Andrew would obviously continue to follow his favourite cartoon character deeper into the woods. Andrew's passing and being mauled to death by a hellhound quite obviously caused fear and unrest in the community. After the chief kills Andrew's father for breaking into his home, Chuckleteeth murders the chief's daughter as well, while inciting the townspeople to lynch a sex offender and driving Andrew's mother off the road by imitating Andrew or his spirit, you can say, and then killing her. The chief himself was killed shortly after finding that his wife was the one behind all the evil in the village, and she was the witch they were searching for. The wife was ultimately Chuckleteeth's final verified victim. Anna unintentionally set herself on fire in an attempt to undo what she had started and ultimately died by what one can only assume to be the end of Mr. Chuckleteeth in the process. The episode ends with the same merry-go-round that Andrew was shown playing on, ominously spinning by itself, which can be taken as a hint that Mr. Chuckleteeth, or probably the spirit that manifested him, was still alive. As a demon, Mr. Chuckleteeth is not constrained by human conceptions of reality and may assume a variety of guises, including Biggle Tiggles, the mascot for the same program that Chuckleteeth stars in, or a huge and menacing black wolf dog. He takes after Slappy the dummy, and the Bell Witch, who resembles Mr. Chuckleteeth in many ways, is one of the most notable rural American witchcraft stories that served as a huge inspiration for the events of this episode, shifting into terrifying forms in the deep woods, stalking victims and performing impossible phenomena. Chuckleteeth never spoke in his many incarnations in the show, but during his appearance at the chief's house, his theme song became ominous, and he confronts his victim directly, threatening to send them straight to hell, as we hear briefly.
Never let us go, Mr. Chuckle Teeth. It's time to say farewell.
The episode is recognised to contain several Stephen King allusions and comparisons, with Mr. Chuckleteeth in particular receiving a lot of "it" comparisons, which is quite fitting considering the fact that Stephen King has worked on the X-Files before and even helped create Chinga. Despite being a recognisable monster from the X-Files revival era, some people have complained that the design of the character is a bit disturbing for a kid-friendly television mascot, claiming that no sane kid-friendly show would feature something so obviously frightening looking. But the thing is, the show is designed to be a horror TV show, so I don't think this is a valid criticism. But then again, I might just be biased because I really enjoyed this episode and, well, X-Files in general. Mr. Chuckleteeth does, however, bear some unsettling resemblance to Mr. Nosybonk from the BBC children's programme Jigsaw from the 1980s. Inspirations from Pee Wee Herman can also be seen in his design. Mr. Chuckleteeth is inspired by many occult legends and folktales like the Black Dog, Bogeyman, Satan, and Hellhound. It is inspired by a few modern legends as well, including antagonists like Slenderman, who is a suit-wearing, abnormally tall monster who stalks and attacks children. He is a continuation of much older tales that involve beings such as fairies and elves. These elves and fairies were also feared for abducting children the way most folk tales are. He is also associated with woods and remote areas. Another inspiration for this character was possessed media, wherein many stories revolve around the haunted of possessed and had supernatural qualities to them, like in Candle Cove. What makes Mr. Chuckleteeth so dangerous? Now, what exactly makes Mr. Chuckleteeth so dangerous? Well, first of all, I'd say it is his ability to not die. Being a spiritual being, Chuckleteeth is obviously immortal and impervious to any physical injury. There is probably no way to permanently kill him, or at least not one we know of yet, and only magical techniques have any chance of success against him. When not called upon or seeking a manifested form, Mr. Chuckleteeth probably lives an ethereal existence in which he is a ghost that is entirely invisible and intangible. As a result, he is out of contact with our world, so yeah, that seems like a difficult villain to beat to me. The next thing would definitely be his shape-shifting abilities. In a ghost form, Mr. Chuckleteeth has the ability to materialise in whatever shape he chooses, including live individuals, deceased victims, fictional characters, and fabled beasts like the Hellhound, as we saw in the episode. Realistic illusions like that cause individuals to reevaluate their understanding of reality and feel crazy even when the reality may be created by Mr. Chuckleteeth thanks to his mind-bending skills. He also possesses psychokinetic talents since, despite being a ghost, he can mutilate people. This implies that he must be able to assume corporeal form, even if it is only temporary. Another skill of his that makes him a dangerous opponent is his mind-warping abilities. Chuckleteeth also has the ability to temporarily send individuals insane or have a negative emotional impact on them, as he did when he persuaded the locals to lynch a man who they thought was responsible for the children's deaths. He was able to persuade them into thinking that just because he is a criminal, he committed the murders. Or, hear me out, he is so good at mind warping that he has convinced me to think that he was the one who mind warped people and framed Peters when he could have just been a coincidence that Diana Scully also had the same idea. Mr. Chuckleteeth clearly has the ability to make pacts with people, giving him the power to sway events throughout the world. He is thought to be unable to interact with reality without a witch's help, which accounts for his seeming failure when Anna caught fire and died. Mr. Chuckleteeth also has a scary amount of knowledge about the personalities, strong points and vulnerabilities of practically everyone in his immediate vicinity. He may appear anywhere he pleases since he is a spirit, and he can obviously take the forms of the spirits of other people. He is not constrained by space or time, but he first appeared only in the town and the nearby forests. All in all, I think this was one of the best episodes of X-Files, especially in the 11th season. It delivers on so many levels. There is the classic Scully Mulder moment where he thinks of something supernatural and she doesn't really get on board with it. We have inspirations from children's TV shows, Goosebumps and Stephen King novels. It really can't get scarier than that, I feel, especially not for TV viewing. It is a well-written episode with a great gloomy palette that stays in accord with the content. I really love the episode, and we would love to know your thoughts on it as well. So, tell us what you thought of the show and the episode in the comments below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.
Mr. Chuckle Teeth!